Most firearm instructors and shooting ranges struggle to fill classes because they never build a marketing machine that gets people signing up for classes every single day. The market isn't dead. It's not because of the economy, and your classes aren't full because you're not a tech person. It's because your marketing sucks, period. I'm going to show you the 3 jobs your marketing machine must do in order to build real wealth while training the next generation of protectors. My name is Andy Howen, and for almost 15 years, I've trained more than 30,000 students and built $1 million training business from a tiny shooting range most people would have laughed at. And now I coach instructors and shooting ranges how to use proven marketing systems to scale their business and strengthen their communities. So this is the H30K program framework. It comes right out of my book, The H30K Method. It's a small snippet of what you'll see in the book, but it's going to change everything on the way you think about firearm safety in classes. And today's training is really fundamental. It sets the foundation for every class, every event, and every offer that you run in the future. And you're going to see why. Because look, I've trained 30,000 people. And in order to do that, I had to systematize training. I had to have a system in my business. You can't just have 4 classes a week with 40 people a class without a system. And my system was a 5-point system. Experience, meaning, transformation, journey, and invitation. My entire book is built on those 5 principles: experience, meaning, transformation, journey, and invitation. And I'm going to go really briefly through each point so that we can just have a foundational guideline, because every class and I can't say this enough, but every program, every ad that you run, it's got to hit all 5 points. I'm going to try to hit those 5 points during this presentation as well. So the class design framework is as follows. First, for experience. We need to give our students the most unique experience they've ever had. Something completely different. Here's what they expected. They expected to be yelled at. They expected to sit through PowerPoint. They expected to have a lecture. They expected to just be bored for a number of hours. They expected just if your state requires training in order to get a concealed carry permit, they expected to just get that piece of paper and be done. So we need to transform what they expect and really give them an experience. And that starts the moment they walk into your facility. And experience really to me is everything the student sees, feels, hears, touches, and smells. From the moment they walk into your training facility to the moment they close the door behind them at the range, everything they see, feel, hear, touch, and smell is part of that experience. And so when they walk in, they should walk into a well-lit, well-organized, clean facility. They should hear music. They should see a good, well-lit organization. If you've got posters on the wall so they can know exactly that they're in the right place, everything starts from the moment they open that door. A warm welcome matters. So you go up, you shake their hand, you look them in the eye, and you say, "Thanks for coming, we're glad you're here." And you train your entire staff to do the same. Name tags. Right away, we want to get them on a name tag station. So you've got Sharpies and name tags set up, and you explain, get a name tag on your front and on your back. And I make a little joke. I say, that way I'm not a target while you're holding a gun. So while I'm behind the student during training exercises or on the range, if I need to get their attention quickly, I've got access to their name right away. And nothing gets somebody's attention like their name. And so it's a safety thing. And it gives them a different experience, because never in their life have they ever put a name tag on their back. And I want to ask if they have any guns or ammunition on them. My rule in my class, you can do it differently, however you want to do it, but I don't allow any live ammunition in my classroom, including law enforcement or lawful concealed carriers. I just don't want that mix. And so you can do what you want to do in that regard, but I feel like it's a safety thing where I don't want live ammunition of any way, sort, or caliber, or any way, shape, or form in my classroom. Then I'm going to direct them to the next step, which should be to sign in and go to a pay station. Your sign-in process should be a liability waiver that triggers automations on the back end, email for 5 stars and things like that. But you want to have that ready to go, and then we're going to direct them to have a seat. We want to make sure that they don't have an experience where they're walking out of, remember in high school when you grab your lunch and you turn around and you're wondering where you're going to sit. You don't know exactly where your friends are. That awkward feeling of not knowing what to do next, we don't want them to have that. So we need to guide them every step on everywhere to go and what to do. Another thing is I talk to instructors all the time, and I have never met an instructor. I've never met a firearm instructor or a shooting range that says, we've got a pretty boring class. we've got a pretty terrible class. Now, everybody thinks that they have the best class in the world, and some people do. But let me tell you what made a difference for my business. Less PowerPoint. There are times for students to learn the differences in calibers and things like that, but less PowerPoint. More hands-on. So if I'm going to teach the difference in calibers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass around snap caps. I'm going to pass around a 9mm snap cap, a 380, and a 38 special, maybe a 22, 45, right? And I'm just going to explain what the differences are, how they how they work, what they should make how they should make a decision. But instead of having it on a PowerPoint where they're just inundated with facts, now that training aid is making that lesson come alive. And so everything that we do needs to be based on that experience. And I want you to have the absolute minimal amount of PowerPoint that you ever can possibly have. My PowerPoint for my intro class is 3 slides. It's 3 slides. And I want you to have the most minimal PowerPoint you possibly can. And the maximum hands-on, the NRA calls it total participant involvement. That's what I want you to do, is involve every participant. I really want you to focus on that. And if you can, the rule about training aids is this. If you can use a training aid, you should use a training aid. That's the rule. If you can, you should. Okay? So I also want you to have no yelling or getting impatient, especially on the range. Look, I totally understand that there are times where there's an emergency situation and we have to take action immediately. I totally get it. But as a rule, your goal should not be to yell and scream on the range. In fact, take a look at all of the shooting ranges. I want you to do this. Take a look at all the shooting ranges next to you, and I want you to look at their reviews. And in their reviews, you're going to see tons of 5-star reviews where people are saying, the range safety officer was super rude. Listen, there are times where we have to use our voice and we have to get control of the situation immediately. And there are times where but those times are few and far between. If somebody's life is not in imminent, serious danger, you need to treat this as a mission and a movement and something that you want this person to come back for. And you're never going to have them come back if you've got this rude person on your shooting range as an RSO. It's just not going to happen, and that shouldn't be you for sure. And continuing down that line of thought, all right, so first point was experience. I think we covered a little bit about that. Now I want to talk to you about meaning, okay? Meaning means when I first started down this gig, I really wanted to understand what makes people come back for more and more training. And so I really wanted to understand what makes people tick psychologically. And I found that people need 3 things in their life. They need a sense of purpose, some sort of reason for doing what they do. They need a sense of acceptance into a social community of some sort, and they need love and camaraderie. That's the 3 things at the core of every human being that they desire. So what we need to do to have the best possible class, to get people to come back for more, we must connect this to meaning. We've got to connect what they're doing in class today to something bigger. And so examples are, tell them that you are starting a movement to protect your community. So you're in front of your group and you say, look, I am here to change the world. I am here to make sure that our community is the safest community in America to live because of what you are doing here today. And that's what my mission is, and that's what my goal is. You want to tell them your why it is that you're doing this, right? You need to have a reason. I'll tell you right now, I was not a gun guy growing up. My family believed that guns were evil and that the only people that have them are cops and bad guys. And in my early 20s, I sold my first business, and I started marketing with Sony and Gillette and really just got marketing in the beginning. Never had anything to do with guns until 2012, where it was the Aurora Batman massacre. Remember the one where the dude walked into the movie theater and shot a bunch of people? And that was the first time that my eyes opened up, and my mind opened up to the value of the Second Amendment. I quit my job, bought my first gun, became a certified instructor right away, and I then set out to change the world. That's my why, because I wanted to make sure that the country that I was raising my son in was safer for something that I've done. And so I'm communicating that to my students during the class. It makes the class not about picking up a gun and loading and pulling the trigger. It makes the class about something bigger. And I want to give them a forward vision of the future. I want to explain step by step what this country is going to look like if we actually get together and make a difference. If we get out there and we have real trained people every single day out there carrying, and you go to Publix supermarket or you go to Walmart and you've got 17 people in there lawfully carrying firearms, we'll get a reputation that the bad guys will know not to mess around with our community. That's a forward vision of the future. And if we get enough people to get armed, get trained, and carry daily, that's what we can achieve. And we need to communicate that message of meaning to our students. Because skills without meaning are more like hobbies. And we're not bringing our students in to have a hobby. We're bringing our students in to turn them into protectors. Meaning turns skills into identity. What's going to get people coming back for your range more often, or your shooting range or your classes? Is it going to be that you have a discount on range membership, or is it going to be that shooting at your range is part of who they are and part of their identity? Transformation is the third point. We went through experience, we went through meaning, now we're going to talk about transformation. Transformation is where we show them who they can become. And what I mean by that, this is really important. Every product or service that you've ever bought, right, you were right here when you purchased it. And where you wanted to be after you purchased it was here. And that transformation from here to here, that is the transformation that your product brings. So using, and by the way, the further that you go from beginning to end, the more money you can charge. Okay, so for example, in the transformation that we want to give our students, we're basically saying, you are not sure about firearms. Firearms are new to you. You're not sure exactly what you want to do. You're not sure that you're comfortable carrying yet. You're not confident with firearms. But after my training class, you're going to be confident, you're going to be comfortable, you're going to want to carry, you're going to be the ultimate protector, the one that your family looks up to. Your kids are going to say, Mom, I'm so glad that you've got my back. They're going to look at you and say, Dad, I'm so glad that you're going to make me safe and keep me protected, right? So that's the transformation that we need to communicate to our students. We need to show them who they can become. And what I mean by that is this is the shift from nervous to the mama protector, the mama bear protector, right? That's a transformation, beginning, end. They're going to go from unsure to the protector of the family. And so we want to use identity language consistently. Like Saddle River Range wants you to become the family protector, or Tactics Matter, another business that I work with, wants you to become the empowered woman who people know will protect them in a gunfight or in case of emergency. And so transformation needs to be in all that you do, because people don't want to take a class. I'll tell you right now, they don't want to take a class. What do they want? They want to be the best version of themselves. And that's what your training class needs to provide to them. Not just the ability to pick up a gun and pull a trigger or draw from a holster and protect a family, but your class needs to provide a transformation for them. And they're going to keep coming to you because it becomes part of who they are, not because you have a discount on your class on Saturday morning. Then we're going to talk about journey, and this is really important. So when I solved my marketing problem, I had 4 classes a week with 40 people a class. And I'll tell you, I at that point, 4 classes a week, 40 people a class, I couldn't do it on my own. I had to hire instructors and RSOs and people to even clean the classroom between classes. And so I needed to earn, from a business standpoint, I needed to earn more revenue per student. It wasn't enough just to have my income from the class. I needed them to come back. And from a community standpoint, I needed people to be actually trained, because I didn't want people out there just who got their carry permit, were just, packing heat now. I wanted people out there who were really trained. And so I had to solve that problem, and I had to look for where that problem is solved in other areas. Where are people voluntarily paying for more and more training? And I came across the martial arts industry, because people need to know where they are, what comes next, and what the end result looks like. And in the martial arts industry, right, I'm gonna talk about that real quick. In the martial arts industry, where do people start in the martial arts industry, right? They always start at a white belt. And where do they want to go? Well, they want to go to a black belt. And 0% of people that sign up for the white belt program ever want to stay at a white belt. They want to become a black belt. So that is a journey. And along that journey, they're getting some real training because they're coming back for more and more and more. And the dojo's making some real money because they're coming back for more. And the community benefits because that person out walking around is actually trained. But we have nothing like this in the gun world. We have nothing like this in our world. Why not? It's a travesty that we don't. And so what we need to do is we need to build our own white belt to black belt system so that when somebody signs up for our intro class, we don't get them to sign up for class 2, right? And what I mean by that is when people come into your class, okay, I know you as an instructor, you've got class 1, class 2, I'm just going to put 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And I also know that as an industry whole, only about 10% of people are going to come from 1 to 2, right? Only about 10% of people are going to come from class 1 to class 2. And so what you need to do as an instructor, if your goal here is to earn $500,000 a year in training revenue, right? If that's your goal and your class 1 is $125, which is kind of the going rate, you're going to need to train about 4,000 people a year to earn that $500,000. That's a lot of people in order to train. And so that's what's happening because only about 10% of people are going from class 1 to class 2. And so when we create our white belt to black belt system, there's a couple of things that we need to do in order to make that happen. Number one, we need to have a black belt. We need to aim, we need to name our graduate. For me, they were ultimate protectors. Okay? You need to name your graduate. I don't care what you name them, as long as they are named, so they know what the destination is. Then, instead of just selling a $125 class and having to train 4,000 people a year to make $500,000, what I want you to do is I want you to sell all of the classes, the whole journey, for one price of $997. And then you don't need to train 4,000 people at a time in order to make $500,000. All you need to do is train 500 people a year. And I'm not making a promise. I'm just saying this is what the math shows, is that if people are not motivated to go from class 1 to class 2, that's not what they want. What they want is to be transformed. They want a journey. That's why they have no problem signing up historically for white belt to black belt. They know it's a long, drawn-out process. But now what we're going to do is we're going to sell all the classes, the whole package at one time for $997. And so now you should be getting a percentage of people every class to come to sign up for your $997 program. That is the journey that they need to go on. And so this is where your $997 program lives, because you're not selling individual training sessions or private lessons. You're offering a defined path. And a pro tip, if there's no visible journey, they default to doing nothing. And that's the last thing we want them to do, because we want them out there being protectors. So we can't have them default back to doing nothing. And then the fifth point is an invitation. This is where we invite them at the end of program 1 into the big program at $997. We give them an invitation. And this is not a sales pitch. This is not pressure. This is leadership. So what you're going to say to them is, what you did tonight was just the first step in a journey. If you want to become the empowered protector, the ultimate defender, whatever you call them, this is how we do it. Then you start your invitation. And the experience should do 80% of the selling. So by the time you get to the invitation, they're already sold on doing more with you. The invitation just gives them the door to walk through. And then I want to talk a little bit about what this $997 program looks like. I want to talk a little bit about what needs to be in it in order for it to be successful. So the 6 required components of a $997 program, you need to have a clear before and after transformation in one sentence and not just sound ridiculous. You need to have a defined time frame, like 6 to 12 weeks, and it needs to be long enough to be believable, but short enough that people want to do it. And then you need to apply each skill to a benefit, right? So every time you talk about a skill, it needs to be applied to a benefit. So an example of that would be if you're giving a holster draw class, you say you're going to learn how to draw from a holster so that you can defend your life under pressure, right? Not just you're going to learn how to draw from a holster, which is what all instructors do. So then you also need to give them a named identity, right? This is what we already talked about, like the certified protector, capable carry graduate, and you need to give them a reason to sign up today. During your invitation at the end of every class, and every single class that you teach, every event that you have, you need to give an invitation. And at the end of every class that you have your invitation, you need to give them a reason to sign up today. And it can't just be money. It has to be other valuable bonuses. I've got people that give free guns away, right? So if you sign up for this $997 program, in fact, this is something I love to do myself. If you sign up for this $997 program today, we're going to get you through these 6 classes. You're going to go from, nervous to confident, and you're going to be ready to protect yourself. And I'll give you a holster. It'll be the whole carry kit, right? The whole thing. It makes it more tangible. And so this is an example of somebody who has a $997 program that they're currently selling. They call it the Defensive Handgun Academy, where you get to become the person everybody hopes is nearby when trouble starts. And it requires 1,000 rounds. We offer it 3 times a year. It's 5 weeks on Thursdays and 5 sessions. And this is where we get into our, this is where we prove our concept of skill and then our benefit, right? So skill, holster draw, so that you can build confident draw control under pressure. We're going to go through movement, so you can stay mobile, stable, and accurate while getting off the X, right? Every time we give a statement, we give a benefit to it. So why join the program? Because you're going to be confident, you're going to have confidence in personal defensive shooting skills. You're going to become calm, decisive, and trusted to protect you and your family, right? And so at the end of the class, during your invitation, you give them this on a piece of paper, and it should be a resume type piece of paper, like high quality, so that they know that the program is high quality also, okay? And what you want to do is at the bottom of it, after you give the invitation, you give some bonuses for why they would sign up today. This range is doing 3 months of free range membership, 5 free gun rentals, VIP training club, which gives discount on all training, plus they're going to give the 1,000 rounds for free, right? This is a program that all these people have to do is sign and date the bottom. The rest of the class is going to clap, or they're going to go ring a bell. Then they're going to go check out for $997. And now your business can flourish because you can spend more money on marketing. You can get more people through the door. You can get people coming back for additional training classes. This is going to transform your business. And so on to part 3, the framework for success. This is the main thing that I needed to get across today. This is the actual framework that I want you to know about what my program teaches. And so there are only 3 jobs that every class must do. And if any of these are missing, the system breaks. And of course, this is not talking about safety and things like that. This is talking about from a marketing standpoint, okay? So the 3-step growth framework. In order for you to be successful with growing your business, if you want to make a big business and a big impact in your community, your pathway is to do this. Number 1, you've got to pack the house. You've got to have a full first class. No matter how much it costs to do that on marketing, you've got to have 30, 40, 50 people in the first class. This is an intro class, something that's just getting them safe, right? It's just teaching them finger off the trigger and a safe direction. That's it. Finger off trigger and a safe direction. Just get them through the door. Just get them started. Of course, it's not enough training for them to be out there concealed carrying. Of course, it's not enough training for them to own their first gun, but it's just to get them safe. Then we need to give them such an unbelievable experience that it makes them hungry for more. Then we need to invite them back for more using our invitation. That's the method. That's the process. So number 1, let's go into a little bit deeper on packing the house. This step exists to get people off the couch, remove fear and friction, and create momentum. It does not exist to give them the training that they need, period. It exists to get them off the couch. So our front-end offer should be low commitment, like 2 hours or less, high energy, taught like I'm teaching now, just super excited, very hands-on. I hate that I'm using PowerPoint, but there's no other way to do it in a video, right? And built for beginners, really focused on beginners and beginner safety. So examples are what we give are the New Shooter Accelerator Workshop. I do that across the country. It's an amazing offer and it works really well. The First Shots experience is the NSSF. Beginner night, ladies intro, date night with the range, right? All of those are great ways to get people off the couch. Number 2, we need to give them an unbelievable experience that makes them hungry for more, okay? One of the mentors that I have says, the best time to sell 2 steaks is before the person has eaten the first one. So what that means is if you sit down at dinner and you're really hungry and you eat a steak, at the end of dinner, the waiter will come up to you and say, hey, you want another steak? You love that one. And you're like, nah, man, I'm good. I'm full. Right? It's not a good time to sell that second steak. But if you sit down to dinner and you're really hungry and the waiter comes up, says, guy like you, yeah, you're going to need 2 steaks, brother. That's when you sell those 2 steaks, when people are hungry. And so if you give this awesome first class and you get them excited, but you don't give them enough to satisfy their craving, then they are in a state where they want to sign up for real training, not just get them safe and get them on the range, sign up for real training. So they should be thinking at the end of the class, I didn't expect this and I want more. So pro tip, information never creates hunger. So sitting there with PowerPoint over and over and over is never going to make them hungry. It's going to make them bored and not want to come back. So then, once they're hungry, we're going to invite them back for more. This is no longer called a sales pitch. We don't call it a sales pitch. We call it an invitation because that's what we're doing. We are inviting them. We are not selling. We are offering a path forward. We're offering the commitment. We're offering the identity upgrade, right? And final reminders for everybody watching this video, you are not selling classes. That's not what you do. Not just about the H30K method, but just in general, what you are doing is you should stop selling classes and instead start selling the journey, the transformation. You're selling the fact that you're building people and building leaders. That's what you're doing. Because people buy clarity, not content. They don't buy your PowerPoint. They buy you and your journey and your leadership and why you're there and your mission. That's what they buy. Identity beats information every single time. There's a time for information. Give them packets, study actual things, like, get them to test them. I don't care, but just don't sit them in front of PowerPoint for 6 hours. So before teaching another class, I want you to ask yourself, who does someone become after they take your $997 program? How long does that transformation take? What is the one thing that you need them to believe in order for them to accept the invitation? Because if you can't answer those clearly, you don't have an offer yet, you have an activity. Thanks for watching. If you want help implementing any of these processes, you can always go to instructormarketing.com and schedule time with my team.